Welcome back to Not So Pro Football Talk, where we're talking about the rating this team's 2023 season. Today, we are doing the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills are a very interesting team to grade their 2023 season because it was up and down, and then they were able to finish up on top. And it's going to be really fun breaking down this team. But before we get into this video, make sure you guys like this video, hit that sub button so you can stay tuned to everything Not So Pro and continue watching this channel. Now, the Buffalo Bills had a very interesting season because it was up and down, all the way to the point they were eventually sits and sits. So let's break that down a little bit for us. Okay, so the Bills started off rough with going against the Jets. Week 1, Aaron Rodgers goes down to the fourth play, and the Bills still lose that game. The Jets were somehow able to win that game. We thought the Jets were going to be great without Aaron Rodgers still. But it turns out the Bills just had a bad game that week. And yeah, they fall short against the Jets, and then they win 3 in a row. Raiders, the Commanders, Dolphins beat down all 3 of those. And then they go on a little bit of a downslope, losing against the Jaguars. They barely beat the Giants. They lose to the Patriots, barely beat the Buccaneers, lose to the Bengals. Then they lose also to the Broncos, and then they beat the Jets, and then they lose a tight one to the Eagles, and that's where they end up at sits and sits. And after they lost to the Broncos, I believe that was the when they were about 4-4 right there, or 5-5, sorry. That was the change in the season, in my opinion, where they ended up deciding to fire their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, and move on from him because they just didn't like what they were seeing from him. And after that, the offense really started coming alive, scoring 32 against the Jets, 34 against the Eagles, coming up short there. But then after they lose to the Eagles in overtime, it was a really close one. That was like the last game the Eagles ended up winning, where they actually looked good. After that, they win 5 straight, going against the Chiefs, winning 20-17. Then they could put a beat down on those Cowboys, barely coming up on the Chargers, 24-22, beating the Patriots 27-21, and then the game to decide the AFC East against the Dolphins. Who wins it? Who gets to be a 2 seed and who gets to be a wild card? That game was all about, and the Bills were able to win 21-14, and come back from being sits and sits and end the season, winning their division 11-6. Faced a lot of adversity to get there, injuries all over the defense all year long, and somehow able to get it done. I was out on the Bills probably about halfway through the season, and then after they lose like really closely against the Eagles, that's when I started believing that team. You can check the tape if you don't believe me when we were talking about on our Monday podcast. That's when I started believing the Bills that they could be good and they could turn this season around. And I didn't think they were going to win their division because I thought the Dolphins were going to end up coming up on top. But I did think they could make the playoffs and then going far. They ended up actually winning the division and getting to the second round. So after the regular season, they got the easiest game ever because they're the second seed. So that means they get to beat down the 7th seed, which was the Steelers. Steelers were a pretty... They had a good record. The Steelers did. They finished 10-7, which was, I think, higher than everybody's expectations for the Steelers. But they were not a good football team. Everybody knew that watching them the whole year. And we knew the Bills were going to be able to really beat them down, especially when TJ Watt went down. So the Bills win that game 31-17. And then we had a really close one in the divisional round where they come up 3 points short, 27-24 against the Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, yet again, Josh Allen and the Bills come up just short against one of the best quarterbacks and one of the best teams in Dynasty at this point, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Josh Allen played really well in that game. He ran for 2 touchdowns for 72 yards, threw a touchdown for 186 yards. You would love to see his passing yards higher other than 186. But the Chiefs have a really good defense. We saw that very much so. But the person I would wanted more out of that game was Stephon Diggs. You could point at tape where he was open a few times, but 3 catches for 21 yards, not where you want to see Stephon Diggs, your premier number 1 wide receiver. Kincaid ended up being the top receiver that game for 45 yards, 5 catches. Overall, I think this was a good season for the Bills. I give them, for their overall season, I give the Bills A for their season. And the guys at NSP kind of agreed with me a little bit there. Vince gave him an A minus. AJ gave him a B plus. So we're kind of all there where they did well, but they didn't exceed expectations. So that's how we're grading all these teams. What was the expectation and where do they end up on top of it? So overall, I think it was a good season for the Bills. Yeah, you come up short. Only one team gets to be happy at the end, but overall, it was a good season. A lot of injuries, but what do the Bills have to look forward to moving forward? Now, next year, it is going to be a tough offseason for the Bills. They have already moved on from multiple players like Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, and numerous others. And they are going to have to, and they're still over the cap. After clearing over $37 million, they are still $14 million over the cap. And at the time that I'm recording this video, they are $14 million over the cap, and they still have to clear that by the new league year, which will start on Wednesday. So they have a lot to do in order to get underneath the cap, and then they still need to try to go out and sign some guys to retool this team, especially that defense, and try to build back better. But yeah, the Bills can do numerous different things to push out cap, most likely moving Josh Allen's cap number down from 47 million. Stephon Diggs cap number from 27. Those are the 2 biggest contracts that can, you can push the cap out and, the good old saying of kicking the can, unfortunately. But they got to get underneath the cap somehow, and those are the 2 most likely ways at this point, other than just cutting players and moving on for them. But I believe that they're just going to restructure those 2 contracts and get underneath the cap. I think key players that you got to bring back, I would love for them to try to bring back Gabriel Davis. I don't like what his number is going to be, but he has been a staple for the offense for the past 4 years, being a great player for them, a great deep target. Yes, he's not consistent every single game, but he's what keeps the defense honest with that deep ball. But he's going to be coming around what everybody's expecting, around 13 to 14 million average salary per year, which is going to be, I think, out of their comfort zone as far as what they could sign. But yeah, I would love to see Gabriel Davis back with the Buffalo Bills, or else you just have Stephon Diggs and a couple tight ends, which I don't think is the best kind of offense moving forward for Josh Allen. It's definitely going to look like a interesting offseason for the Buffalo Bills and how they're able to retool this team and have them still be a good team moving forward. Everyone's calling after all the off-season moves so far, where they've been cutting players and creating cap space, that this is their Super Bowl window is over. This team is done, etc., etc. I don't believe that for a second. I believe Sean McDermott is a good football coach and can retool his defense and build them back better. Hopefully, not with some the special names that they had in the past, but even with injuries all last year, they still were a team that could compete down the stretch, compete against certain teams, and shut out a couple teams pretty well. But I think they can retool that, in my opinion. Now, the offense, as far as Josh Allen is one of my top quarterbacks. I know he throws interceptions, and that has been my biggest attack on him personally. I've been up and down as far as my support with Josh Allen. I believe Josh Allen is a good quarterback who is going to keep them in games and going to continue to put them in conversation of the playoffs, of the Super Bowl, etc., until he ends up retiring or he just drops off, which I don't think is happening anytime soon. So if you're calling for the Buffalo Bills name, saying that they're done, it's over, throw in the towel, I don't believe that for a second. They're going to be a good team moving forward into the future. The number one thing that they're going to have to attack in the draft, in my opinion, is going to be the safety position. They moved on from Micah Hyde, they moved on from Jordan Poyer, and that leaves them nothing in the backfield. They had one of the best safety duos in the entire league, and now they don't even have one of those guys. Definitely need to attack that position in the draft and get somebody to rebuild that defense. Or there's a lot of safeties in free agency. He kind of moved on for two of them, so I highly doubt that they're going to sign any of those guys for any of the big names, do big time deals. So I would imagine that they are going to sign one of the smaller safety names, get it first to a small deal, and probably draft a couple of guys also. So that's what I think the Bills are going to do this offseason, what they need to do to retool that offense, that defense, etc., in order for them to continuously stay on top of the AFC East. And we'll see if they're able to beat out the competition. Dolphins are going to be a good team next year. Jets should be a good team with the Aaron Rodgers coming back for them. It's gonna be a tough AFC East, in my opinion. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay tuned to everything NSP. And until next time, keep on grinding.